Do you find it hard to put together sets that flow, or do you struggle to add structure to your mixes? The chances are you're thinking about your playlists in the wrong way. And if you don't change your mindset, your sets will be predictable, boring, and even worse, forgettable. I'm going to show you 3 new ways to think about playlists that will help you fight the blank page and get started quickly. Give you ideas for new and interesting ways to travel between your tracks and create flow, and give you the secret approach to add 100% more creativity in your sets. This is Jimmy Chucklefarts. He's an easygoing guy into bento boxes and succulents. When he goes on holiday or vacation, he likes an adventure. Jimmy always books his return ticket first. He works out where he's flying back from and then works out the most interesting journey to get there. One of the biggest problems when creating a new playlist is figuring out where to start. How do you know that one track that will kick off your set in the right way? Now, the problem with this is the question itself. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard to know where to start. To be more like Jimmy, we have to work out the end of our set before the beginning. Then we can construct a really interesting journey to get there. When Jimmy starts a new playlist, the first thing he asks himself is, what feeling do I want to leave the listener with when the set ends? Or another way of describing it, what's their destination? In this case, Jimmy's goal is to leave the listener feeling inspired. So he finds a nice dub plate that crosses genre boundaries and will leave them in awe. Jimmy now knows where he's going with his set, but how does he find the path leading to it? As we know, Jimmy's a bit of a free spirit. He likes to follow his intuition and experience new things. On his holidays, he doesn't pay much attention to things like cost of transport or what vaccinations he might need. In the same way, in his sets, he's less concerned with factual things like BPM or key and more concerned with feelings. He just wants to create an experience for the listener and to himself. Jimmy's tracks are tagged with things like vibe, mood, or even memories, subjective feelings and thoughts rather than scientific attributes. He works backwards through his set track by track, always asking what mood would come before this. Just like in a movie, before a moment of big drama, you might want a period of calmness. Eventually, by working backwards in this way, he finds a natural starting point for his set. And there's another fun thing about Jimmy's more subjective approach. Even if he started a playlist with exactly the same track, he'd end up with a completely different playlist. Another way Jimmy likes to think about his sets is by using storytelling frameworks. And if you're struggling with flow in your sets, this is something that can really help. That's one of the topics I covered in the HotQ DJ newsletter. So if you want to get more tips like that, the link's in the description. Jimmy's sets are always interesting and they can really feel like epic journeys. But they can also be meandering and indulgent without any clear purpose. Or put another way, Jimmy can be a bit up his own arse. So is there a different approach? This is Penelope Q. Bramblebush. After years of middle management in a failing juice company, she's more of a planner than Jimmy. So she tends to have a better idea of what she wants to do on her holidays. Before she books, she spends time looking up the main landmarks and attractions she might want to visit while she's there. But she always tries to leave a little bit of time in between for some low-key exploration. For example, getting some fish pedis for her freakishly dry feet. In the same way, DJs normally have an idea of at least a couple of tracks they definitely want to play in a set. These tracks can then form the landmarks in our playlist. Then all we need to do is find interesting paths between them. For her holiday, Penelope has worked out the 4 landmarks she definitely wants to visit. But if we look at the map, the landmarks are scattered all over the city. Penelope likes more structure than Jimmy, so she wants to plan logical and efficient routes between these landmarks so she can visit them all while she's there. To apply this approach to her set, she pairs up the landmarks. Each pair then has a start and an end destination. She takes these tracks as the first pair. It looks like they have BPM and key in common, but the energy level is different. 2 versus 3 stars. For this part of the journey, Penelope decides to find tracks that slowly build from 2 to 3 stars. She then starts adding them between the 2 tracks. She goes through the remaining pairs and does the same thing, finding ways to move the set from one landmark destination to the next, until she has her full playlist. By the way, let me know in the comments if you're more of a Jimmy or a Penelope. Breaking your set down into small sections like Penelope does can really help planning and decision making. And the landmark tracks, make sure you cover everything you actually wanted to without going too far off track. I've also got one bonus tip for this kind of approach. Just like Penelope's holiday, your set has time constraints. Too many landmarks and you won't have time to visit them all. Try around 4 as a starting point for an hour set. That's roughly 1 landmark for every 15 minutes or so. Now Penelope's approach is fast and effective. Just like her holidays, her sets are normally pretty well thought through and flow quite well. But the problem is she doesn't leave herself a lot of time for new experiences. And as she normally follows the most common tourist trails, her sets can sound a bit generic and predictable. So is there a way to introduce more creativity and experience things you wouldn't necessarily find in a guidebook? Meet Quincy Giggle Nugget. Actually, it's probably better if you don't because he's pretty intense. He's an aphid farmer with a penchant for laminated flooring. And he's a spontaneous kind of guy. He books his holidays by spinning a globe and seeing where it lands. Then he just kind of wings it while he's there. The Quincy approach to creating playlists might sound insane at first, but it can actually generate the most creative playlists of anyone we've met today. To create his playlist, Quincy starts by choosing a track from his collection at random. This is now his starting track. The rest of the playlist making process then becomes a big game. How can he create something cohesive out of the randomness? Quincy starts his holidays knowing almost nothing about where he's flying into. He once went to Birmingham and didn't realise, His playlists are kind of the same. When he starts making them, he's got no idea what's going to happen. Like Jimmy, he tends to follow his gut. But unlike Jimmy, he doesn't have an overall goal or journey in mind. He throws in tracks on a whim, and often he only works out how they're actually going to fit together during the set itself. Quincy is the most likely of all 3 DJs to make someone go wow because he's always coming up with crazy ways to combine seemingly incompatible tracks. So shouldn't we just create playlists with almost no planning like Quincy every time? Well, the problem is 90% of his sets are absolute disasters. Horrible to listen to and all over the place. He has massive creativity, but a very low success rate. That can be fine if you're messing around at home, but if you want to be consistently good, it's not a great approach. So how do we get the journey vibes of Jimmy, the efficiency and flow of Penelope, and the creative spark of Quincy? The answer is probably to take a bit of all of their approaches. Have an idea of where you want to go, do a little bit of planning and add some structure, but leave enough room to be creative and experiment. But like many DJs, you probably aren't using all the tools at your disposal to help you actually do this. So watch beep 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 beep. At the time recording this, we're pretty close to 25,000 subs, so thank you for that. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know I like to sprinkle in a few tech house jokes. But as this is a special occasion, just this once, I'm going to give it a break. But I do have a deep internal desire to make fun of something. Are you struggling to get the crowd dancing? Do they fall asleep when you play? Have you been playing progressive house again, Jimmy? Try the new Prog Be Gone 4000 from Roots Court. This limited edition product contains 174 drum and bass bangers for just $99. With tracks from artists like MC Gibberish, Good Company and DJ Stale. Act fast because supplies are limited at people that want it. So watch this video next where I show you how to use the full power of Rekordbox to help you create amazing playlists every single time.